We are now looking at the move to queen d3. All right, and we are going to be looking at the three black responses, which are g6, e6, d6, and d5. Excuse me, 4. All right, so the first game we're going to be looking at is the g6 line. g6. Black guards the f5 pawn and plans to play something like a Leningrad system. Here it is not good, as white will obtain a small advantage. So here is the game in question: d4, f5, and queen d3. I'll add this right here. You can see right away that already white is attacking. The f pawn is not defended. So game often revolves around how black is going to defend that, and at the same time white is aiming for a rapid development, right, using this tempi to play the move e4 here. Knight c3. Sometimes the bishop will come to g5. Quick queenside castling. All right, so if black is not careful, if white is not black is not careful, black can end up in hot water from this line. So this game started off with a g6. Again, we're going to be looking at d6, also d5, e4, f takes e4, queen takes e4, and now knight f6, right? Gaining time on the queen, but the queen wants to be here anyway in order to continue to harass black's weakened king side. Bishop g7, and now knight f3. You see? And already white has an attack in the making. Castle. Knight c3. And now d5, bishop h6. Again, just real primitive, strong arm tactics here. Getting rid of the bishop, right, that controls the dark squares. c6, and there it is, king side castling, queen side castling rather. a5, bishop d3, a4, and rook he1, and just like that, white is fully developed. Knight a6, knight g5, and notice that white's play is a little bit faster on the king side than black's counterplay on the queen side. Knight b4. There goes the dark square bishops. And this just brings another one of white's pieces into the attack. b5. If h6 right here, probably just knight e6. And that's good for white. So b5, again, a little bit too slow at this point on the counterplay. Rook d3, e6. Notice another one of the issues we brought up in the first video about some of the problems black runs into. Look at this bishop. Bad bishop. Locked behind the pawns. Rook takes e6. Of course, black cannot take because of the fork. h5 now. Rook takes c6, and black's position falls apart. So this is what it looks like when everything goes right for white in this line, and this is why black should probably avoid g6 against this line here. Again, in the g6 line. So d4, f5, queen d3, g6. Again, this is a game Horvath Ritter. e4, d6, knight to c3, bishop g7, knight f3, Notice this time black did not capture. Knight f6, and now just e5. D takes, and now knight takes e5. Knight f d7. Knight f3, keeping the pieces on the board. E5 looks like a good move, but premature as it opens up black's position too early. Bishop g5, clear tempo on the queen. Bishop f6. Bishop takes, queen takes. So we could see the elimination of the dark squared bishop early on. D takes, knight takes e5, and then queen e3, initiating a pin. Knight bc6. Knight d5, hitting the queen and threatening c7. Queen d6, castles, and you can see that white is putting black in a whole world of trouble. Rook b8. If black castles here, then the discovery knight b6 is quite effective as the queen drops. So rook b8, knight takes e5, queen takes e5, sacrificing. Excuse me, not sacrificing a piece, but just trading off a piece on e5. Another idea is just queen takes, knight takes, and then utilizing the pin here. Queen h6, king f7, bishop c4, and you can see all of the open diagonals and open files really make it difficult for black to survive. That's why e5 was bad, just opening up the position prematurely. Bishop e6, rook he1, queen d6, rook takes e6, another rook sacrifice, exchange sacrifice on a e6, and then easy work as there's a discovered check right there, and black had to resign in 20 moves. So you can see that queen d3 is not something that you could just ignore. You have to meet it correctly. It is a dangerous, potentially dangerous system. Okay, now we move on to the move e6. All right, where black just intends to develop his king side. All right. And we go to the game Medvedev, who was 2,500 with the white pieces, and a player named Varitsky, who's 2,330. Again, have the d4, f5, queen d3. Here, black plays solid move e6, and here, white is very aggressive and tries to just rip open the king side with g4. And black plays the move d5. Other move that was tried was f takes g3 here, h3. And then black did not want anything to do with these open files on a G and H file, so therefore he just played g3. The game was double-edged after c5, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, bishop e3, and queen a5. Later on, we'll be looking at those lines, h3, g4 lines right out of the opening. Again, they can be dangerous also. So g4 was played here, and black just ignored that and played d5. G takes f5, e takes f5, and now c4. Knight c6, bishop g2, knight b4, gaining time on the queen. D takes c4, a3, and now knight d5. Queen takes c4, knight gf6, queen b3, and you can see already white is using a lot of time moving the queen around. All right, and this is one of the downsides of bringing the queen out early in this line. Bishop d6, and you see black is using the time pretty well to develop its pieces here. All right. Knight c3. Notice that bishop really can't. Bishop can capture, but if the bishop takes knight, knight takes bishop, queen takes bishop. Black would just win the queen with bishop b4 check. Knight c3, and now c6. Bishop g5. Another alternative is bishop d5 here. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, c takes d5, compromising the pawn structure a little bit, and then play knight f3. Should be better for white here, slightly better due to the isolated pawn. Instead, he played bishop g5, and now black plays knight takes c3, b takes c3, h6, bishop c1, queen b6, offering the trade of queens, queen a2, and now knight e4. And you can see now black has turned the tides here. This pawn is attacked. Bishop d2, knight takes d2, king takes d2, queen takes d2, allows black to castle. So I guess white didn't want that. He wanted to keep the queen on that diagonal. So king takes d2, bishop d7, rook to b1, queen a6, and now queen b3, castles. All right, and now black has the hope of attacking the white king. e3, rook he8, and now black is definitely better here. Bishop f1, queen b6, gives up a pawn. b3, rook a8, knight to f3, bishop e6, hitting that rook. Rook to b1. Maybe c4 was a little better here, but black still was able to mount up the pressure, dial up the pressure. Rook b1 was played. Rook takes a3, rook b2, rook a1, bishop g2, takes, and now bishop d5, h3, rook a8, bishop g2, rook a1 now, h4, and bishop a3, rook c2, and then bishop b3. And black won that game as white was forced to resign. So that's a good win for black, being that white was about 200 points higher than him in rating. But you see another alternative there. So you saw the downside of white's early aggression in that game. All right, now we're gonna go to our next game here. All right, Giovanni Lava, the white pieces, versus Arkady Rothstein, the black pieces. So again, the queen d3, e6, and this time white just goes with the standard e4, and black obliges and plays f takes e6, queen takes e4, knight f6, queen e7, and now the bishop is pointing directly at the queen on h4. So you can see it's a little bit different here, as opposed to when black plays g6 and the bishop is not able to point directly at the queen. Here it's a little bit different, right? There's some danger, with some discovered attacks or what have you on the queen here, since the bishop is pointing aggressively toward him. Game continue. Bishop d3, castle, knight f3, knight c6, and now knight c3. Bishop g5 here, h6, probably a little better. And white can go for perpetual. Not that that's what he's looking for, but he has it in that line. If white if white chooses to play bishop g5, it's an option. But knight c3, and now knight b4. A very strong move, because black now is able to trade the strong bishop. The bishop cannot move off d3 because of the threat to the c2 square. So castle, knight takes d3, c takes d3. That's a powerful piece to get rid of. Powerful attacking piece. b6. And we see another theme that we spoke about in the first video. How to deal with the problem bishop on c8. So there's an option right there. The bishop comes to b7. Queen g3. Bishop b7. Notice again the deficit here with the demerit of bringing the queen out so early, because now since the queen is like on the front lines of the battle, white has to spend several moves moving the queen around, making sure the queen is safe, that there's no discovered attacks, etc. And that gives black time to develop his position, right? And gives black time to build up initiative himself in some cases. Knight e5, queen e8, rook e1, c5, attacking the center. D takes, bishop takes e5, bishop e3, bishops come off the board. And of course white has no advantage to speak of here. Game is probably says it's equal. A few more moves. Queen e3, b5, and knight is pushed back, and eventually black went on to win this game. But again, that's out of the scope of this video. Like I said, we're focusing more on the opening, but you can see the downside now of bringing that queen to d3. All right, early on, in how kind of backfires as black starts to lose, white starts to lose a lot of time just moving the queen around so much. And like I said, eventually black was able to win this game here. All right, so we looked at g6 and we looked at e6, and now we're moving on to our next move for black, which is d6. Okay, and d6, black is planning on moving his light squared bishop into action as fast as possible. Remember, the bishop on c8 can be a problem sometimes. So d6, black plans to try to solve that. All right, so here we go. So in this game, Ronan Lev, who's 2480, versus Ram Soffer, so two Israeli players who was rated 2440. And this game took place in 1990. So d4, f5, queen d3, and now d6. All right, now e4 doesn't work as well, because now you're giving a clear path for the bishop to just come out at some point on c8 after the exchange. All right, so these are the ideas. So knight c3 is probably a little better here to make black wait a little bit. So e4, f takes e4, queen takes e4, knight f6, queen h4, and now you see how the bishop just comes right up. That's the idea behind playing d6 there. Get the bishop out right away. And now the game is just equal. c3, e6, queen g3, another queen move, knight bd7. And already look at black's development compared to white's. I really don't need to even go on with this game anymore, but I'll show you a little bit more. Knight d2, g6, bishop d3, g5, bishop takes, e takes, and now what you see here is black has a great stonewall position where he has solved the problem of the c8 bishop. Remember, the c8 bishop is usually a big problem for black. Black has gotten rid of that bishop and now has erected the stonewall, and now he has an excellent dark square bishop. Knight e2, bishop d6, again hitting the queen, queen d3, queen e7, castles queen side. All right, and black's pawns on the king side are already advanced. So he's ready to strike first. Rook d8, rook e1, knight e4, bishop f4, g5. So the attack begins. Bishop takes, queen takes. This is detrimental. This exchange is detrimental for white, because it gets rid of a strong piece and possible defender of the king side, and it brings black's queen right in the scope on the king side in that diagonal. Knight g3, queen f6, c4, g4, knight d2. I always say with the opposite wing attacks, the material is not as important as the initiative. So you'll often see pieces sacrificed easier, pawns sacrificed easier. Queen g5, knight takes, d takes, queen e3, another ill-fated queen move, and then f4. So what you're basically seeing is the downside. You saw what it looks like when black plays g6 and white is allowed a couple of extra moves to do what he wants to do. But now you're seeing stronger play by black, and you're seeing white lose a lot of time with these queen moves. So the queens are traded off, and then black is just up a piece and went on to win this game. Okay, so let's look at our next game in this line. Okay, so Meyer versus Gaudens, 2450. Again, d6. Now we know what the idea of black by playing d6 is. e4, f takes, queen takes, knight f6, queen h4, f5. Again, complete equality. c3, e6, knight e2, bishop e7, bishop g5, castles, knight g3, bishop g6. And you can see also the benefit of bishop f5 is how well the king side of black is protected. Bishop c4, d5, bishop b3, knight c6, knight d2, and e5. So black develops super quickly and breaks through in the center. Knight f3, e takes d4, of course, opening up the position while you're ahead in development. Knight takes, queen takes, c5, queen d2, c4, bishop c2, knight g4, powerful move, threatening the f2 square here. Bishop e3, bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes c3, f takes e3. Do I need to go on anymore? Bishop c5, and white is just driven into passivity. Queen h4 check, g3, queen g4, queen g2, rook f5, queen h5 after h3, g4, check, knight g3, rook e5, castle, and the rest is just no comment required. Black just went on to win this game. Of course, bishop c5 guarding the back rank there. Desperation sacrifice by white. And a nice ending right there, because it's going to be mate if king takes a3, simply queen b3. So nice little nice little tactic at the end there. All right, so you can see d6 very effective if white plays e4. All right, so white should not play e4 at that point when you see the move d6. All right, so this is how improvements are made in chess. Right, this is the evolution of lines and openings. You see, if players have certain ideas, players counter attack the idea, and then they say, "Hey, I can't play e4 after d6." So somebody says, "You know what? Play knight c3. We'll wait a little bit. Okay, we're not gonna just let that bishop come out." So after knight c3, excuse me, this is game Yaroslav Krozel, 2285 versus Milan Spal, 2245. So knight c3, and it's more of a waiting game. White is gonna develop and try to put a pawn in the center using, say, like f3, e4. So knight f6, bishop g5, knight c6, and f3. Queenside castle is also possible. g6, castle, bishop g7, queen c4. All right, blocking the castling. h6, bishop h4, f4. Maybe d5 is a little better here, right? But f4, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and now d5, of course, is out of the picture since the knight is gone. Knight d5, e6, and just knight takes f4. If e5 to try to preserve the pawn, then d takes e5, bishop takes e5, e3, f takes f4, bishop g7, and rook d3. And you can see that black comes under fire because he's not developed enough and not ready. The king is in the middle, and the position starts opening up. So black just parted with the pawn. He played e6, knight takes f4, bishop g5, e3, and he played queen f6. Bishop takes f4 here, e takes f4, castles, and then just g3. And again, look at black's king side. Very weak. So instead, after e3, queen f6, knight g, h3, bishop d7, d5, right? Because of course, black would like to just run to the queen side. And now queen takes c7. If e takes d5, then just simply knight takes d5, hitting the queen and hitting the c7 square. So there's really nowhere else for the queen to go but back. Right, so queen d8, and then the knight on h3 can go to f4, hitting this square, and you could just see that black is in just a world of trouble here. So after d5, knight e5, and again, no more comment is really required on this game, and white went on to win this game. Also, after a few more moves, I'll just show the moves real quick so you can see the completion. So you can see the pawn structure, the exposed king. And the game was over, and black had to resign. So you can see with this move knight c3 and just waiting, playing more of a waiting game, white doesn't play so naively and playing e4 right away and allowing the exchange, and then knight f6 and a quick release of the bishop from c8. That's the strategy here. All right, and that's a little better than just playing e4, as you can see. All right, so now, we looked at d6, e6, and g6. right? And we saw that g6 is probably the worst. All right. And we looked at e6, which is not bad. And d6 is not too bad, but you have to be careful after knight c3, as you just saw. And now we're gonna look at d5. Okay, this move is the first time I actually saw this move looking at Alicon game actually, and this was his move, his recommendation against queen d3. And you can see it right here. World champion Alexander Alicon's move is the best continuation, d5, because white does not play the queen move, queen d3. Play the queen move, queen d3 in the stonewall. All right. And so here, white tries g3, c4, knight f3, bishop f4, and g4. Right. So basically, black transposes the game into a stonewall where the move queen d3 is just not useful. Okay. And you see that kind of idea in many openings where transpositions occur. Okay. So for instance, I'm reminded of the Petrosian variation in the Queen's Indian defense, right? Where white will play an early a3, but then black will play d5 and transpose into a Queen's Gambit decline variation where a3 is kind of a superfluous move position. So there's many positions like that. You probably could think of some yourself where you transpose on your opponent where he has like used a move that normally wouldn't fit into that system. And so that's what's happening here is Alicon plays d5, and so queen d3 is a move that you would never, you wouldn't normally play. So let's look at it. All right. The first game we're going to look at between two strong grandmasters, Viktor Gavrikov and Lev Sakis. This game took place in the Russian Championship in 1983. So after d5, f5, queen d3, d5, that was played. And let me just show you Alicon's lines real quick. He goes e6, e4, f takes, queen takes e4, knight f6, queen h4, which we saw, right? Alicon gives slight edge to white, and also on g6, he gives slight edge to white. So Alicon d5 and g3 was played. The game that I saw was this one, the first, Mock versus Alicon 1926, where bishop f4 was played here, and Alicon went on to win a beautiful game. But back to this game, g3 was played, knight f6, bishop g2, e6, c4. So basically this is just white trying to transpose back into like normal stonewall lines with the wasted move here. Bishop d6, knight f3, castle, castle, c6, b3. Remember that queen normally would be on d1, so there's other moves, a whole tempi that basically is lost. For instance, the bishop could be on b2 instead of the queen being on d3. The bishop could be on a3, for a trade. Knight could be on b2. I'm sorry, on d2. This is why black is equal. A bishop d7, and again, this is one of the ways to get this bishop into the game. Queen e7 is possible, of course, but this is known as the Botvinnik maneuver. Right, a way to get this bishop into the game. So bishop d7, bishop a3, bishop e8, dark square bishops come off the board, e3, knight bd7, knight c3, bishop h5, and there it is. The bishop is free from the light square pawn chain. Knight d2, knight e4, f4. Alright, so you have like a reverse stonewall here. Rook ac8, c5, Queen e7, and I'm not gonna get deep into the analysis. Like I said, we're just talking about the opening, per se, and the different responses, and you can see d5 is very effective response here. b4, g5, and of course both sides are just going with the typical plans. But like I said, since white has wasted a tempi on queen d3, black has no problem equalizing and here fighting for the initiative. b6, good move here is king h8, just clearing the g file instead of like if I'm black, I'm not even really trying to play on the queen side unless I have to. So b6 seems like unnecessary. But knight b3, rook b8, knight a2, bishop e8, h5. So black felt it necessary to slow white down a little bit on the queen side before continuing his attack on the king side. h4, king h8, finally, to bring the rook to the g file. King h2, bishop d7. So now the bishop is back being passive again, right after liberating itself. Bishop h3, rook g6, king h1, and here we go. Rook b g8, rook g2, and fantastic move right here from Lev here. Notice the queen on d3, rook on f3, and rook on g2, all protecting the g pawn, but to no avail because of tactics. Rook takes g3, check. Rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, and ouch, the old fork, right? King g2, queen drops. And isn't it ironic, right, that queen coming to d3 and staying there the whole game, only to be unceremoniously captured like that in the end in knight e4, and black forced white to resign. So nice combination. Now of course you can see it, right? Because the king is in the corner here, and that's what allowed the combination, right? Distracting the rook off the f file, and boom. All right. So we see Alcon's move standing the test of time here. So get our next game. Again, remember, chess audiobooks is on Lichess and chess.com, right? I love to play 1 minute games, and you know, I'll be glad to play you. Come there, become my friend, and we'll play. And please hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Our next game, Predrag Ostojic 2350 versus Sendor Videcki 2385. So again, after d5, f5, queen d3, d5, g3. So it's just an attempt by white to transpose into normal stonewall territory, but a tempi down. Castle, castle, c4, c6, b3, and just queen e7 this time. Queen e7 stops this idea of trading off the dark square bishops for now. Remember, in the last game, black opted for bishop d7 and went for this Botvinnik maneuver where he, you know, he wanted to get this bishop out. But here he decides to play queen e7 first, which at least for the time being prohibits white from playing the move bishop to a3, trading off his valuable dark square bishop. All right. So a4 is played, and there's the same idea. I actually saw this idea played in the game. I believe it was Kasparov short, and so a4 now with the backing of the rook, bishop a3 is possible. However, the downside is that the downside of this maneuver is white has weakened his b4, b4 square. Black played knight e4 here. Also possible though is a5. It's keeping that weak, or the move knight a6. These are things you have to think of. All right, so white is gonna get what he wants, but you're gonna get something in return. Instead, black played knight e4. bishop a3, bishop takes a3, knight takes a3. All right, and then black played b6. Of course, he should have probably played a move like a5. Again, making white have that weakness, right? Not letting white just get what he wants for nothing. But anyway, we're not commenting on the games. b6, knight c2, knight d7, b4. All right. Again, that shouldn't have been allowed to happen by black. Bishop a6, b5, d takes, queen takes, c takes, a takes, and now rook fc8, queen a4, and now bishop takes b5, queen takes b5, and rook takes c2. So you can see the bishop distracting the queen away from the protection, the knight. And again, you should see black with just a good game. And actually, black went on to win this game. You see the two outside passes, beautifully placed knights. So you can see that against queen d3 doesn't look too effective against this logical setup, the stonewall setup. All right. There's another game between Stromer and Urola. Again, g3 is played. Knight f6, bishop g2, e6, knight f3, bishop d6, c4, c6, knight c3, castles, and b6. And you can see another option for black here. Again, exploiting the early positioning of the queen on d3 is to bring the bishop to a6, just pressurizing the c4 pawn, and also developing, right, and the bad bishop, which solves a problem. Okay, so here I read you the note. Black has two main plans in the stonewall. He can transfer the light squared bishop from c8 to h5, which we saw in the Lev Psakis game. But here's a second plan with b6 followed by bishop a6. Okay, so that's another plan. You'll see that in games of Igor Glek. I don't know if we'll look at any of his games in this this particular video, but probably down the road we'll see that him employing this plan quite a bit. So b6, bishop f4, bishop a6, b3, bishop takes f4, g takes f4, knight bd7, knight g5, hitting that sensitive e6 pawn, rook e8, and now queen h3. All right, again, just going for the attack at all costs. h6, c takes d5 here, and c takes d5 by black. Good move, because if he takes here, h takes g5, right, takes the knight, d takes c6, and you know, there's some counterplay on this diagonal, right, with this idea. You know, knight moves, then the pawn, you know, push up, hitting the queen. There's some unnecessary complications there. So this is why he just plays, he takes d5, c takes d5. He doesn't go in for it. Knight f3, knight e4. All right, and black has a good position. And just go quickly through these moves, so you can see how easy the idea of queen d3 is handled there. Right, black just simply presses his pawn right here. Here, bishop has to move from e4. Pawn drops, queen g3, g5. And strong moves from black. Fork themes coming up. Can you see it? Right, and this is what happened when you had dangerous pieces lurking around in your territory. Rook takes e3. You have the family fork here. And black is just up material and just wins rather easily after bishop e2. So I hope you're convinced that although there are other options, against the play here. You can play G6, you can play E6 or D6. I hope that you're convinced that that D5, just entering into a stonewall is the most effective continuation here. Okay, now we're gonna look at a game with a great Dutch defense player, Vladimir Malenik, with the black pieces going against a player, Ostojic. And after f5, queen d3, d5, of course, instead of g3, white opted for the immediate c4. Again, no problems. e6, knight f3, knight f6, g3, and the game basically transposes. You see this idea? d6, knight e5. This time, black just opts for bishop b7. Knight takes e4. D takes e4, queen c3, bishop f6, b3, c5, hitting the center, undermining the knight on e5, e3, queen c7, bishop b2, rook d8, rook a d1, knight d7, a lot of pressure, knight d7, rook d7, double, and you can see that black is just equalized with no problem. And this puts a lot of pressure on the position here. Gets the pawn back. And this game actually ended up being a draw. But you can see black equalized with no problem. And black probably could have improved whatever, but he allowed the pawns to another option again for white is knight f3, and if you notice, a lot of it transposes, but we're just going through the games really fast. So queen d3, d5 again, knight f3, there's c4, c6 again. It's basically white trying to play a stonewall but tempt you down. a5, a3, and there you see the typical plans in place for black. e3, and by a4, undermining the c4 pawn. D takes, b takes, rook f c1, a takes, queen takes. There goes the knight. Now knight c6. Bishop g7, queen takes g7, c takes, and knight a5, and black went on to win this game rather comfortably. Again, we're not going to get into deep analysis, like I said, but I just want to focus on the results out of the opening. So you can see that even though white has different tries, that a lot of them transpose. Again, now after knight f3, knight f6, you see bishop f4, right? And if you saw the second video, it was all centered around the move bishop f4 on move 2 though, instead of queen d3. So you can see already black is equalized. Knight c3. Again, bishop's coming to a6, so it's a common theme. Knight bd7. Let's see. Shipkov is giving knight c6. And the idea here is if knight takes, then bishop takes c4. As you can see, the knight on e5 is defending the pawn on c4. So knight c6, f4, c takes, knight b5, takes, and knight e5, and queen takes e5 with black ahead. Instead, knight bd7 was played, and then knight takes d7. The reason why knight takes d7 was worse than knight d7 was worse than knight c6 is because here black doesn't have the in-between move. Because if now black had played bishop takes c4, then the knight can just take on f6 with check, right, and just get another piece. So that's the difference. If black played the knight c6, if he played here, then you can play that because there's no in-between move for white. Difference there. So knight bd7, knight takes d7, queen takes d7, knight b5, and b3, and this game ended in a draw. All right, so you can see that the variation has been neutralized. All right, last idea, actually it's not the last idea, almost the last idea here in this line is bishop f4. Okay, and again, you cannot say, oh, that's a bad move. It's just a, you know, a nice move, a stable move. Okay, just a, you know, but black can equalize. All right, if you want to say anything that maybe black can do is when, you know, anytime the bishop leaves one side of the board, you know, for instance, you can see here that b2 is weak, right? So there's, you know, there's something to be said about strategy. So maybe with the bishop committing itself over on the king side so early, perhaps there's a way that black can try to attack on the queen side of the board. All right, because the bishop, you know, to exploit the absence of the bishop. This game is the stem game of this line, right? The great world champion Alexander Alekhine with the black pieces going against Hans Mock. Summary 1926. I love this game. I think I analyzed this game before my channel already. But this game was very inspirational for me. I played the Dutch a lot when I was younger and used to run into a lot of anti-Dutch systems. And I remember seeing this game and I was inspired. Queen d3, d5 by Alekhine, bishop f4, e6, and now knight f3, knight f6, e3, bishop d6, bishop e2, castles, and it's already equal. Knight e5 and c5, and you can see the attack, the counter attack on the queen side. c3, knight c6. All right, and it's important that this knight on e5 be exchanged, right? It's in a great position. It can't stay there long term. Knight d2, queen c7, so you can see the build up pressure on e5. Knight df3, knight d7, so you can see the battle, right? Something has to give. That knight has to go. So eventually knight takes d7, bishop takes d7, a bunch of pieces come off, right? But now white can no longer occupy the e5 square. Castles, and now c4. All right, this lets me segue into one of the options I mentioned in the first video when I was going over the basic plans, is the attack on the queen side. We are so familiar with the used to seeing the attack on the queen side in the Dutch, on the king side in the Dutch. We never see games where black is attacking on the queen side. Well, here is one. All right, queen d2, b5. Black sees a space on the queen side. Knight e1, g5, and he's also sees a space on the queen side. However, check out what Alekhine does. So he plays white plays f4, and then Alekhine just locks it up. g4, b3, rook fb8. So now white really has no counterplay, because since the king side is locked up, he can't really launch a counterattack on the king side. And black is already far advanced on the queen side of the board. Knight c2, a5, b takes c4. This is what white wants. I mean, what black wants. He wants white playing on the side of the board where he's strong at. B takes, rook fb1, and now knight a7. Okay, that knight's coming to b5 eventually, because this pawn is weak. Queen e1, bishop e4. I know I said I want to analyze these games. I can't help it. I'm trying to do it quick though. Queen e7. Again, you can see the route of the knight. Knight b5, the d6, the e4. Queen d2. Knight b5. And again, you see the pressure right here. Rook b2. Rook b7. Rook a b1. Rook a b8. Bishop e2. h5. g3. h4. So now you see while white is all tied up on the queen side, Alekhine starts attacking on the other side of the board. e4. Alekhine plays knight d6. Rook takes, rook takes. Though now black is in possession, sole possession of the b file. Queen c1 to keep Alekhine from penetrating. And he just simply plays knight takes e4. Again, pressure there on the c3 pawn. So knight e3. And now there's no way to stop everything. Pressure here and pressure here. So h takes, knight takes, king f2, and knight e4. And white resigns. So beautiful, beautiful game by Alexander Alekhine. So just remember, if you don't remember anything about this game, mock Alekhine 1926. Remember, stonewall with the queen side attack. All right, let's move on. Another game with last game with bishop f4 here after queen d3. So Aliev versus Trahulo Moreno, two players at a master strength. And again, we've seen this before. This time the queen decides to get out of dodge. Plays to b3 again. Another tempi. So if with correct play, black's always going to equalize. Can't use that much time. And if black is playing strong moves, you know, he's going to equalize. Knight h5. Another queen move. Knight takes. Bishop takes f4. Alright. And so black just goes into this end game, and he has two bishops and a pawn to attack on d4. Alright, so he's just, you know, he's equalized and he has an edge. So he just basically has winning chances. He can play for those two results, right? Draw or win. Alright, and I'll just continue to, you know, just go through the game real quick without commentary. And eventually the pawn falls. And eventually white resigned. Alright, real easy work there. Right? Too many queen maneuvers in the opening. Alright, so now we are on our last option. Right, our last main option, because believe, you know, people always could do like all kind of weird moves, but we've gone through the main line. So here's our last main option, which is g4. It's very aggressive, okay, but again, you know, look, you know, weighing it in the options and principles of chess, right? Is g4 really something that black has to worry about, right? This thing is g4 like developing anything? Is g4 really, you know, is weakening the king side of white? You know, the only thing it's really doing is opening the g file, and it's taking away the pawn that black would like to use in the center, right, to stop e4. So, but I don't think it's that, you know, that good. So we go to 1996, the Alikhan Memorial. We have Pavel Tregyubov, who's 2470, going against Vladimir Malynuk here, 2585. So let's see how he handles this. So he doesn't take, right? He plays d5. So he maintains this control over e4, and he's threatening to take the pawn because the bishop is right there on c8. Queen d3. And now he just plays g6. Okay. So e6 is possible here, right? Again, just going into your stonewall. F takes g4. h3 starts to give white kind of what he wants. This is gambit continuation, but you know it's playable. But you have to, think that okay, it's probably some compensation there. I want you to think compensation along the lines of the Benko gambit, if you're familiar with that. Where white sacrifices a pawn, white sacrifices the pawns. Black sacrifices the pawns on the queen side, the open files, and get a lot of positional pressure. All right, so this is playable. I probably will play something like e6, but here Malynuk played g6. G takes f5, and now bishop takes f5. Hitting the queen and developing. Queen b5 check. Knight c6, and I like this because he's saying, hey, take this pawn, because black is playing on principles, right? He's developing while you're running around with the queen snatching pawn. So it can't be nothing good out of this. c3. If queen takes b7, knight takes d4. Knight a3, bishop e4, f3, e5, with this idea of exploiting the weakening that g4 left behind. So let's say f takes, bishop takes, rook there, check. And it's a good game for black. So let's go back. Knight c6, c3 was played. Queen d6, castle, and again, I could start right there. Good game for black. Nothing to worry about. Bishop g7, of course, preparing e5, very thematic advance. There it is. Again, nothing to worry about. And now we see white saddled down with all kind of weakness in the position. I know I'm moving kind of fast, but I know the video's been long also. I want to get through this section. And black went on to win this game. You can see him just dominating the position at this point. All right, what else do we have here? Okay, we have a game, Chris Bomer versus Grandmaster Kevin Spraggett. So queen d3, d5, g4, and here Spraggett played e6. Like I said, it's very playable also. We're gonna go into like a stonewall situation. Knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e6, takes. G takes, E takes. Again, we're just equal now. F4. All right. 3 and Queen E7. All right. So problem here is, white is weakening itself with F4, especially with this backward pawn on E2. Again, nothing to worry about from black's camp. He starts undermining the center here. And starts attacking on the queen side. A5 is coming. Yep. B4. And these type of positions just play themselves. Knight takes B4. Nice little combination here. Rook takes B4 here. And then just king B7 because the queen is coming to A8. and black, white resign. Okay, so that's just another option. Okay, and quickly we're gonna go over these moves that aren't as good for black. All right, this first game is between Gerard Welling 2368 and Jerome Bosch 2433, who who was the author of the SOS opening series that was popular a few years ago. So after D5, G4, F takes G4. Remember, I was saying this is probably not to be recommended, as white can get some counterplay going here. So I'm just showing you just for example. So G3, so he doesn't capture again. He plays G3. Queen takes G3. F takes G3 is worse here, as you can see by the pawn structure. So Queen G3, Knight F6, Knight F3, Bishop comes out, Bishop F4, Knight H5, Queen H5, a lot of queen moves. G6, Bishop E5, Bishop G7, takes, castles, C6, Queen H6, Knight F3, E3, Knight E5, Bishop E2, Queens come off, and here this game ended in a draw. As you can see, there's really not that much in the position here. Again, after F5, Queen D3, G4, F takes G4, H3, Knight F6, and now H takes G4. Bishop takes G4, Bishop H3. All right. Another idea is F3 here, and try to play E4 at some point. Anyway, Bishop H3 was played. Queen D7, Knight C3, Knight C6, Bishop G5, castles, queen side, F3. There it is. Takes, and now G6. E5 was definitely on the menu. What's wrong with E5? Nothing. Idea being D takes, Knight takes, hitting the queen, and just going into a comfortable game. Bishop E3. Again, so E5 was definitely the right move there, but G6 was played for some reason. And this game also ended in a draw at this point. And our final game is between two players rated around 2450. Again, after Queen D3, D5, G4, F takes G4, H3, Knight F6. And this time, white opted for Bishop F4 instead of H takes G4. G6, Knight C3, Bishop G7, H takes G4, Bishop takes G4, now Queen B5 check, Knight C6, Queen takes B7, Knight D4, castles, C5, and now white has some counterplay, it's like double-edged position. Queen takes, Bishop takes E3, Knight E6, Bishop goes back, Bishop to E5, excuse me, Bishop B7, Bishop B5, King F7, takes, Knight takes D5, and this game also ended in a draw. And the Queen D3 variation. So in our next video, we are going to be looking at variations with moves 2 G4 and 2 H3, and there's some exciting continuations in there. All right, but to wrap this line up, again, D5 definitely the best continuation. Definitely the best continuation against queen to d3. You know, in my opinion, hands down, definitely after queen d3, d5, and then just going into a simple stonewall setup. Here, either g6 is good, Meleniak's continuation, where is after g takes, you could just develop with bishop to f5, or e6 as Spraggett had played, and just, you know, going into this stonewall continuation. Either move is good. It's probably, you can take, but it leads to some double-edged positions. In other words, white gets more chances. So why give him more chances if you don't have to?